up, Taiwan? I'm Eric Hsiao. Thanks for joining us for the news today. Vice President Hsiao says building up Taiwan's drone defenses is vital to deterring a Chinese invasion.
不排除当初普丁在决定要去用武装来侵略乌克兰的时候，我们不排除他也是有误判，也就是说过度自信自以为很快就能够拿下乌克兰，所以他做出了这个决定。那我们其实也不能够让北京政权误判台湾自我防卫的决心。
Hsiao made those comments in an interview with Taiwan's central news agency. It comes as a $6.6 billion special drone budget remains stalled in the legislature. Hsiao warns that if Taiwan fails to strengthen its asymmetric defenses, Beijing could take that as a signal to invade. She also noted the business potential and non-military uses for drones. Foreign Minister Ling Jialong will lead a delegation to Palau to attend events related to this year's Pacific Islands Forum. The Foreign Ministry says Ling will take part in a discussion with the bloc's member states. He will also visit an exhibition showcasing Taiwan's development projects in the Pacific, including initiatives in renewable energy, climate adaptation, and smart healthcare. He is scheduled to meet with Palau President Serango Whips Jr. and hold sideline exchanges with other delegations. Taiwan has participated in Pacific Islands Forum summit events as a development partner since 1993. It was excluded from last year's gathering when all non-member states were not invited, including the U.S. and China. A biennial U.S.-South Korea joint military exercise has been canceled, according to the South Korean military. The Twin Dragons exercise was originally set for September, but the U.S. pulled out amid the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. U.S. President Donald Trump recently ordered another joint U.S.-South Korea drill cut short. Many saw that move as a gesture to appease North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. For more on this, our reporter Larry Hsiao spoke to defense expert Bryce Barrows from the Institute for National Defense and Security Research.
This is now the second U.S.-South Korean military exercise to be either shortened or canceled entirely. What signal do you think this sends?
I think it sends a few different messages. One, I think it does call into question broader sort of U.S. commitment in the region. Given President Lee's administration's focus on wanting to lessen dependence on the United States and make South Korea much more self-reliant, there is a very strong overlap on some of the model ally sort of rhetoric you'd hear from D.C., as well as South Korea just kind of wanting to move away, especially under a South Korean progressive administration, towards more defense self-reliance or defense autonomy.
The reason why this exercise was canceled was due to U.S. commitments in the Middle East and the ongoing war with Iran. What do you think this tells allies and potential adversaries?
When you think about deterrence, Americans, I want to emphasize this is the way that Americans view it, think of the 3 C's, right? So capability, credibility, and communication. And you're communicating that you're downgrading some of the capabilities, which impacts the credibility to do something, or the calculation in the mind of an enemy or an or potential adversary that the U.S. is going to do something to change your calculus, right? And I think when you kind of put that all together, it's a little bit, it's very direct. It shows the United States is more focused on the Middle East, and that doesn't help with the credibility of deterrence here in the Indo-Pacific, broadly speaking.
If you were a military strategist or a leader here in Taiwan, what would you think about the situation?
I don't think it's a major concern, but I think it could become a major concern, and that policymakers here need to watch an eye out for this. It's something that people in Taiwan need to pay attention to for a couple of reasons. One, it does impact indirectly Taiwan's security because all the U.S. bases and facilities within the region are interconnected. You can't just take South Korea as a node out of the Indo-Pacific for U.S. basing and not have second and third order effects on different sort of Indo-Pacific contingencies. I do think it matters to Taipei. I think we need to see what happens with more exercises. What does the exercise season for 2027 look like? We're already getting to the tail end of 2026. Is there a reduction of forces for Pekalatan? Other sort of regional conflicts if an Iran situation continues to last beyond what it is now.
That was Bryce Barrows from the Institute for National Defense and Security Research. Satellite imagery shows China has built a new structure in a disputed part of the South China Sea. Reuters reports the structure on Yagong Island near Lingyang Reef, also known as Antelope Reef. Analysts say it could be an early warning radar facility to support further military buildup on the island. China recently finished building the first part of a suspected military base on Lingyang Reef, which could play a role in a conflict over Taiwan. Canada says it is ready to respond dollar for dollar to new U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods that came into force on Saturday. John Van Trieste reports.
Canadian officials inspect some of the finished products inside an Ottawa steel plant. Since Saturday, when the U.S. slapped a 50% tariff on a range of Canadian products, steel included, Canadian producers have been under renewed pressure. The tariffs may only affect around 5% of Canada's U.S. exports, but they hit some vulnerable sectors like wood products. But Canada says it's hitting back.
Today I'm announcing that Canada will match the United States tariffs dollar for dollar, rate for rate. Effective September 8, Canada will impose counter tariffs of up to 15, 25, or 50% on $27.6 billion in imports from the United States of America.
The tariffs will affect around 4.5% of U.S. imports into Canada. And they are strategic, designed not just to protect Canada, but to put pressure on the Trump administration ahead of midterms in November. For those at home, the message from Ottawa is to keep buying Canadian.
If you see a Canadian product, please support it. Because what is really important from this new chapter of the trade war is that actually when you choose a Canadian product, you're not only putting pressure on the U.S. Right now, you're protecting jobs.
U.S. President Donald Trump has traded insults with Ontario Premier Doug Ford. Trump dismissed claims that he has been trying to undermine the French language in Canada, a reference to U.S. requests for English-only packaging. And he's floated the idea of renaming Lake Ontario Lake America. And U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance says Canada is letting in third country products for transshipment to dodge U.S. tariffs.
We know that Canada allows itself to be used as a backdoor for Chinese goods. They treat Chinese goods more fairly than they do the goods that come from the people of Maine. It's insanity. And what we've said to Canada is stop it.
As the trade war escalates, people on both sides of the border are reacting.
Canadian sovereignty is the kind of in the background here. So sure, I think it's definitely an insult to Canadians. I think it's an insult to our alliance has been going back for decades. They're our closest ally. They're right up the border, and it's bizarre.
It's hurting us, of course. We're doing the best we can to buy Canadian products. Unfortunately, tourism, we don't go there anymore, like a lot of us. There's other places, and I don't know, he's not going to be in presidency forever, but as far as the tariffs go, we'll survive.
What comes next will be a test for an old neighborly friendship under stress. Chris Ma and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Global demand for AI drove Taiwan's industrial production index to a record high in July, jumping 25% since last year. Government data shows the manufacturing sector, which makes up most of the index, rose almost 27%. Computers and optical products surged more than 95%, while semiconductors and electronic components gained over 22%. Sectors feeding the AI supply chain, such as machinery and metals, also saw steady growth. However, chemicals and automotives both dropped by around 5%. Officials expect overall growth to continue through August. Taiwan's AI boom is also driving a surge in electricity demand, reigniting debate over how the country generates power. As voters prepare to weigh in on nuclear energy later this year, a new poll suggests concerns over energy security are growing. Ai-Chi reports.
As Taiwan faces growing power demand and rising energy costs, questions are mounting over how the country can keep the lights on while maintaining energy security. A new nationwide survey by Business Today found that about 70% of respondents support restarting nuclear power plants and developing next-generation nuclear technologies after being asked to weigh factors including safety, generation capacity, and deployment timelines.
其实有超过68%的民众是支持重启核电的。那进一步这一次比较新的一个结果是，我们也询问了 SMR， 就是新型的这种小型的核能，有超过70%的民众其实是表达支持的，尤其南部跟离岛的支持度最高。
Taiwan became nuclear-free in 2025 when its last operating reactor was shut down. But nuclear power once supplied nearly 20% of the country's electricity. Now, as the AI boom dries up demand for power, voters will decide in November whether to support a nuclear comeback. As a stable energy supply becomes a key pillar of Taiwan's growth, Premier Dorongtai says the government is open to new nuclear technologies, such as small modular reactors, and is assessing the restart of a nuclear power plant.
因此，在2025年今年的预算当中，我们就有一部分的预算是在讨论 SMR。我们的讨论 SMR 是进入到想跟国际先进的技术的讨论接轨。
Taiwan imports about 95% of its energy and depends heavily on overseas supplies of oil, natural gas, and coal. The survey found more than 80% of respondents support accelerated power development, as concerns grow over the country's ability to meet rising demand from the tech sector. But whether that support translates into votes later this year remains to be seen. Ryan Wu, NIT for TaiwanPlus.
The city of Kaohsiung is offering financial assistance to residents and businesses affected by recent flooding. Owners of businesses and factories flooded to a depth of less than 50 centimeters can apply for around $300, as can residents who lost home appliances. Assistance is also available for owners of damaged cars and scooters. That's on top of the central government's plan to give affected households up to $1,000 each. A dead pig infected with African swine fever has washed ashore on Taiwan's outlying Kinmen Islands. Local authorities discovered the carcass earlier this week. This is the third time this has happened this year. Kinmen is a short distance away from China, and there are more than 5,000 pigs within 10 kilometers of where the carcass washed up. Pork exports from Kinmen to the rest of Taiwan have been banned through the end of this month as a precaution. Extreme heat is changing the rhythm of farm life in Japan. Ai is back with this story.
With one heat wave after another, Japan keeps shattering temperature record this year. The country's weather agency had to coin a new term to better warn the public about dangerous heat levels. A Kokushobi is a cruelly hot day, where temperatures reach 40 degrees Celsius. Amid this climate trend, farmers have taken to working after dark to avoid the scorching heat of the day. More than 100 kilometers north of Tokyo, flower farmer Zijima Motoaki now takes to his fields only after the sun goes down.
We were concerned about our workers' physical safety and even their lives, since temperatures are rising every year, so we decided to switch to harvesting and doing other tasks at night. We've gradually become nocturnal. It's about protecting our bodies and ultimately our lives.
He made the drastic change 3 summers ago after a part-time worker suffered heat stroke picking sunflowers in his greenhouse. It's become a life and death matter, especially given the average age of farmers in the country. Around 70% of farmers in Japan are 65 or older, and more susceptible to heat stress, especially in Japan's humid climate. About an hour's drive away, poultry farmer Usuba Tezuya is also turning to night operations after a huge loss of livestock in 2020.
The temperature was very hot and more than 500 chickens died in this shed and the next one over. Chickens don't tend to eat when it's hot, so what we're doing is we wake the chickens up when it's cooler during the night and get them to eat then.
The amount of working hours lost to heat translates to nearly 1% of GDP. The government's taken action, introducing new regulations requiring employers to set up heat stroke response and reporting procedures. The country is also promoting smart farming technology such as drones and robots to reduce workers' heat exposure. While government initiatives and smart tech take time to scale up, Japanese farmers are holding the line after the sun goes down. Alex Chen, Tat Chen, NIT for TaiwanPlus.
And thanks again for watching What's Up Taiwan. Follow us on social media to get updates from us in your feed. Finally, we join a series of tributes to country music icon Dolly Parton following her death at the age of 80. I'm Eric Yao. Take care.